Hello, welcome to this installment of Bite-Sized Neo4j for Data Scientists. My name is Claire Sullivan. I am the Data Science Advocate at Neo4j, and today we're going to talk about using the py2neo Python driver. In our last video, we showed connecting to a sandbox, but we kind of glossed over the driver a bit. So I want to talk a little bit more about that today. If you're interested, you can create a free sandbox instance using that link at the top. Then the first part where I showed that connection to sandbox in Jupyter is in that second link there. And the third is the repository for all the code that you're going to see within this series. All right, so let's dive right in. I'm going to assume a little bit of knowledge today of Cypher. So in a future video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to use Cypher, but today let's just go with it. Okay, first things first, you want to pip install py2neo. This is a community created driver, very simple to use, love it a lot. Okay, so we're going to pip install those things. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to use py2neo to make a connection to the sandbox. Now, these are the bolt URL and password that I got from my sandbox, as I showed in the first video. These will be taken down by the time you see this video. Okay, no error means that I have made my connection. So let's just quickly query the graph to find out how many nodes are inside of it. Okay, so using this instance of the graph class, I get my result back. And what I see is that I have 2,642 nodes in my graph, which is correct. Now, if I were to look at the type of this variable result, what I see is that it's a cursor. And this is actually similar to the cursors that we would see in SQL. Now, the thing about those cursors is that they go away when the code is done executing. So for instance, I'm going to look for Eddard Stark within my graph. The graph that we're using here is the Graph Data Science instance of Sandbox. It's got the Game of Thrones graph in it. Okay, and what I see, I've actually printed the result one of two ways. One way is just a little table that py2neo comes back in. Another way is this, if you add the .data, you get a list of dicts here. So that's all well and good, but if I try to use that variable again, what I see is there's no data in it. And that's, again, because it's a cursor. Now, let's do this not as a cursor, okay? Let's try to get this in a variable that I can handle. Again, I'm going to use this .data here, and I'm saving it into the variable name called result. If you recall, that was a list of dictionaries, so I can iterate through that list and print it out. And here I have 10 people who Eddard Stark interacts with within 1 to 2 hops of a specific type of relationship. Okay, so that's useful. And then if I go back and I just do my type result, I'm going to get what we would expect if I can type, which I can't. Okay, so I'm going to get my list. That's great. Now, let's say you didn't want this in that format. Let's say you wanted your result in a pandas data frame. Well, that's great. Here's a query looking at who was defending against which attackers in battles within Game of Thrones. And I'm going to use this toDataFrame method here. So if I do that, I'm going to just write out the results, the top 10 results there. And I see I have a data frame. And looking at the various elements here, if you know Game of Thrones, these make sense. Okay, cool. Let's say I'd rather have this in some sort of NumPy array. Okay, so here's how I do it in a NumPy array. I have 2ND array. Okay, very good. Now that's all well and good, but actually py2neo is even simpler than that. Let's say I want to create some nodes and relationships within my graph. I am going to use these things that I have at the top in my import, part of the py2neo package called node and relationship. So what we're going to do is we're going to create instances of node and relationship. I see I have a node, the label is person, and the name is myself, Claire. I have a second node, and in that second person node, I have Emil, who is our CEO at Neo4j, and then I'm going to create a relationship between us. That edge, the relationship name is knows, so this is Claire knows Emil, and I'm going to create that in my graph, and good. Let's make sure it did it. So I'm going to use graph exists. Okay, I'm going to see graph exists of that variable a, which is me, and that's true, good. Okay, let's see if Emil exists. He does. Hi, Emil, you're in our graph. And now let's see if that relationship exists. I'm just going to make AB here, which was my relationship, and I see that it does. So that's very cool. Love it. So I just want to say thank you for watching this part, and stay tuned for more parts. You can find me on Twitter. If there are things that you'd really like to see within this series, please hit me up. Let me know. We'll see you out there. Thanks a lot.